Hi, sister ladies. We've got a doozy of an update today from Sister Wives Season 20. This one's packed with secrets, revelations, and drama you'll absolutely want to know about. Yes, we're talking about Christine confronting Robyn in a way we've never seen before, and then on top of that, Mykelti drops a bombshell about a secret in her own life that will shock a lot of viewers. Buckle up because this ride is going to be insane. Along with that, let's get on with it. If you have been following the show, then you will realize the family dynamics were always complicated. There has always been so much drama between Robyn and Christine. Christine, who has always been somewhat reserved when it comes to confrontation, decided that Season 20 was the right time to finally speak her mind. And she didn't just whisper her thoughts, she made it clear in front of everyone. Now, while Christine was addressing Robyn, Mykelti, who has mostly stayed behind the scenes, shared something very personal, something from her teenage years that we've never heard before. It's not a small confession, it's the kind of revelation that makes you go back over everything you ever assumed you knew about her. So here's what happened. During one of the Season 20 episodes, the cameras rolled, and the conversation started in pretty casual fashion. Christine said some past family gatherings, things that had been fermenting beneath the surface of things for years. First, it was like it would be your average storytelling, commenting on previous quarrels, funny anecdotes, and sibling rivalry, and then Christine started addressing Robyn directly. And you could tell there was frustration alongside truth in her tone. Now I have to pause here and establish context for those who don't remember the circumstances. Christine and Robyn have disagreed on parenting, family decisions, and just generally the way this polygamist household works. They've disagreed that they have accumulated over the years into a stiff, sometimes tense relationship, which the cameras have caught from time to time, but this time Christine wasn't having it. Before we get to the quotes, I just want to say something about Mykelti's moment, because it mattered. As Christine was talking to Robyn, Mykelti inserted something which she had never revealed publicly until today. She stated that she did have a girlfriend when she was a teenager. Yes, you heard that right. What is remarkable here is that Mykelti has always been tight-lipped about her personal life, and opening it up on camera is a very courageous move. It brings another level to the family drama and gives fans something seriously juice-worthy to discuss. Right about now, you're likely asking yourself, wait, how did Christine deal with this? Was it awkward? Well, kind of and sort of. Christine's focus stayed on Robyn, but Mykelti's announcement brought another level of drama to the conversation. And let's be honest, fans of the show love these moments when long-held secrets come to light. Now let's dissect Christine's confrontation. She did this by recalling specific events wherein she felt that she had been dismissed or manipulated. And instead of sugarcoating it, she called names, dates, and events, giving viewers that kind of insider analysis that makes you feel like you're in on it. My favorite aspect of this segment is how real it was. Christine did not rant and complain, she deconstructed situations, giving her spin while being vulnerable as well. You could see that part of her frustration was rooted in years of feeling unheard, and part of it was simply wanting her truth to be acknowledged. Meanwhile, Mykelti's story wasn't just a side note. She shared how having a girlfriend shaped her teenage experience, how it intersected with family expectations, and how it influenced her understanding of love, trust, and self-expression. It's a human and universal tale, and it deepens the season's narrative in a way that feels real and authentic. And you know why? I have to say it, moments like these are why folks keep coming back to Sister Wives. It's less about the fighting or the drama, and more about people releasing and showing themselves for who they are, maybe in ways that surprise everyone, including family members. So the first big takeaway from this episode is that Christine is willing to call Robyn out in public, and Mykelti is willing to expose things that she's kept to herself for years. That couple makes some really good TV, and it's exactly the type of show that's going to get people chattering online for days. Okay, sisters, on to the juiciest stuff. Christine and Robyn coming face to face. Here the drama really starts to ramp up, and you can sense the emotions there. Christine did not leave vague suggestions or tangents. She laid out specific examples of where she believed Robyn had gone too far, ignored or distorted things. It started when Christine made a comment about a family decision that had caused tension years ago. She said something to the effect of, "Robyn, you always tell us all what to do and you never even listen to us." And the cameras picked up on that moment, the moment when Robyn certainly had an epiphany that Christine was no longer holding back. You could feel the tension shifting in the room. Now, listen carefully. Christine did not just accuse Robyn, she gave context. She explained several examples of how Robyn's actions had touched her personally, moments when Christine felt demeaned or dismissed. She even spoke about holidays, family gatherings, and day-to-day parenting decisions. And every example was supported by details, making it seem real and undeniable. The subtlety is the thing here. Christine wasn't screaming or crying, she was intentional, precise, and specific. She used time wisely, making each point resonate. And guess what? That's part of why this kind of confrontation is so interesting to audiences. We're trained to think that drama on reality TV is exaggerated, but this was real and believable, and that makes it that much more interesting. Now for the dynamics in the room. Mykelti, as we've established, had just admitted her secret of having a girlfriend when she was a teenager. That revelation bred another tension, because it changed the family dynamic subtly. As Christine talked to Robyn, you could sense Mykelti's presence and story affecting the conversation. Robyn did have an authentic reaction though, seconds of shock, hesitation, and maybe even guilt. And as a narrator here, I have to say, it's amazing to see how these small gestures and expressions tell more than words ever could hope to. One of the more significant things Christine mentioned was about communication or lack thereof. She cited that increasingly over the years, Robyn had a tendency to frame decisions as being in the good of the family, but Christine knew it seemed to disregard individual perspective. Told her it's not about control, it's about listening and respect. And that's something that has been lacking. You could see that line stick because Robyn's demeanor shifted, taking in the criticism even if her reply wasn't immediate. Here's a detail some viewers might have overlooked. Christine deftly cycled back to past events, building a pattern that supports her argument. For example, she mentioned a family vacation where a decision was made without her input, then later referenced a parenting moment where she was sidelined. By repeating these incidents in a non-aggressive way, Christine effectively built a narrative that Robyn's behavior wasn't isolated. It was consistent over time, and that's brilliant storytelling. Meanwhile, Mykelti's commentary continued in the background. She reflected on how having been brought up in the family shaped her own life and why certain rules or customs were unfair. When she confided that she'd had a girlfriend in high school, it wasn't just a surprise, but also an insight into how family life impacted personal choices and individual self-expression. She stated, "I learned a lot about who I am through navigating these rules and expectations. And to be honest, that line haunted me. It's subtle but strong." Another good point, Christine employed humor judiciously but well. She inserted a few light comments about family foibles, teasing about sibling quirks or Robyn's controlling nature. But every joke had a function. It diffused tension while reaffirming her message, and that is precisely why her method is so engaging. Okay, sister friends, now let's discuss Robyn's reactions throughout this confrontation, because frankly this is where the tension begins to become almost palpable. You might see Robyn squirming in her chair, trying to put sense into Christine's words, and at the same time maintaining her poise for the cameras. And believe me, every look, every hesitation, every little move, was telling us more than language ever could. When Christine first started taunting Robyn, there was a moment of shock. You could tell that she wasn't ready for Christine to speak so openly. Or perhaps she was, but she didn't anticipate the quantity of information Christine was ready to provide. There was that old Robyn refrain, a gracious nod, a quick smile, and then the internal clenching of her jaw. "Sister friends, that tiny telltale," she says to him, "I hear you, but I'm not agreeing yet." And if you have watched the subtle shades of implication on Sister Wives, you'll know that's kind of the equivalent of Robyn saying, "I'm listening, but I'm also considering my answer." Now it gets even better. When Christine went on, referencing times in the past when she had felt dismissed or put down, Robyn started to shift her tone ever so slightly. She tried to interject a couple of times, probably to clarify or defend herself. But Christine was not giving her an easy opening. She was firm but calm, and that combination made the moments feel very real, almost like watching a chess game unfold. Meanwhile, Mykelti's revelation about having a girlfriend in her teenage years seemed to change the energy in the room. Robyn's eyes crossed in her direction a few times, as if she were doing a "wait, I didn't know that" calculation. It was not melodramatic or histrionic, but to anyone who was listening, it made things tense. There is a creeping psychology here. When a family member reveals a secret that invalidates the initial assumption, it plays with power arrangements however minimally. And here it carried more weight, because the room was already charged with that added tension of sharing at a personal level. Christine also did a very clever thing. She used concrete examples to underpin her argument, tracing them back to show patterns. She discussed instances of occasions Robyn had made decisions on holiday planning, finances, and even parenting tactics. Not every anecdote was tossed out at random. They were connected in a way that specifically made Christine's point. This isn't one isolated incident. This is how things have been for years. Now let's talk about the veiled jab. Christine made subtle comments that were snarky but not glaringly aggressive. For example, she might joke teasingly about some bizarre behavior Robyn has, or mention a situation wherein Robyn's perfectionism was tension-causing. These little things are old-school reality TV storytelling devices. They get us leaning forward and saying, yes, she's calling her on that, without turning it into a yelling match. A second layer here is how the camera captured body language and micro-expression. Sister friends, things get juicy here. Robyn folded her arms, looked down occasionally, and then shot a calculated glance upward. You could almost feel her internal processing, weighing each point, thinking about the optics and trying to remain composed. At the same time, Christine maintained eye contact, sitting upright, speaking clearly, and letting her pauses land just long enough to emphasize her points. Meanwhile, Mykelti's secret was referenced again, almost. She didn't make it the focus, but she connected it to a broader point about individuality and autonomy. She talked about how surviving her teen years educated her on herself and the family she was staying with. It's amazing because this confession added substance without overshadowing Christine's confrontation. It added to the story instead of conflicting with it. A lesson we can all learn, combining Christine's precision, Robyn's understatement, and Mykelti's bombshell creates a multi-layered story. You've got conflict, revelation, and shock, all in one chunk. That's why fans are glued to this episode. It's authentic, it's realistic, and it's full of emotional scenes that are captivating viewers. It's sister friends, and I say this, pacing is everything. Christine doesn't rush, she lets every point breathe, giving Robyn room to react and giving the audience a chance to keep up. This gradual build-up makes the confrontation more dramatic and authentic, rather than yelling for TV's sake. Fine sister friends, we finally arrive at the juiciest part of the confrontation, Christine's harshest shots at Robyn. Here's where the drama becomes super hot, and you can see why fans are going wild over season 20. Christine pulled no punches. She pointed out instances where she had felt Robyn had overstepped boundaries, or acted without consulting other members of the family. One of the very few things that really hit home with me was when she said something to the effect of, "It's not about being boss, Robyn, it's about respecting everyone's voice." That sounds like a cliché, but here it was weighty. It encapsulates years of tension, unspoken frustrations, and power struggles, all in one calm but sharp statement. Now here's where Mykelti's revelation comes back into play. As Christine detailed these moments, Mykelti chimed in, reflecting on how the family's rules and expectations shaped her own personal growth. She explained how it was sometimes hard to be herself fully because she grew up in this environment, and coming out as having had a girlfriend in high school was claiming her independence and self. Sister friends, this part is so interesting because Christine's criticisms are focused but not vengeful. She refers to specific instances, like past holiday conflicts, conflicts about parenting decisions, and even tiny household conflict. By grounding her arguments in reality, she keeps the conversation from being an absolute argument, and makes it look real and relevant to watch. One of Christine's subtle tactics was taking her arguments all the way back to previous episodes. She reminded Robyn and us of patterns of behavior, rather than isolated events. For example, she explained when Robyn had made a decision independently without consulting anybody else about it, then alluded to a similar incident that happened more recently to demonstrate it was a recurring issue. That kind of rehearsal engages the audience, thinking, yes, she's right, it's a pattern. Robyn's answers are layered too. She doesn't respond with knee-jerk defensiveness first, but has facial reactions and physical expressions that convey acknowledgement, hesitation, and thought. You can see that internally she's grappling with the criticism while trying to keep her cool. These small visual touches are classic reality TV storytelling tactics, small gestures that communicate more than words maybe can. Christine also peppered in attempts at humor as a way to push back against tension. She joked about familial quirks, teasing about tiny things that Robyn and she were not in agreement about. The humor didn't dilute the confrontation, instead it enhanced it, making it feel more human and less staged. And fans love that, they get to see both the drama and the personalities at play. Now let's talk about Mykelti's secret again. Her revelation wasn't just a sidebar, it intertwined with Christine's confrontation, adding an extra layer of complexity. By sharing that she had a girlfriend in her teenage years, she not only revealed something personal but also subtly highlighted the limitations and expectations imposed by the family structure. It's a quiet yet powerful counterpoint to Christine's critique, showing that multiple family members have experiences that haven't been fully acknowledged. Here's the interesting part. The combination of Christine's pointed criticisms and Mykelti's secret created subtle tension among the siblings. You could feel it in the silences, the glances exchanged, and the pauses between sentences. It wasn't yelling, but it was loaded, stratified, and deeply involving. Sister friends, one of the things to notice especially here is the tempo. Christine doesn't rush through her points, she takes each instant to accumulate, giving Robyn a moment to rebound and the audience a moment to sip it in. That measured stride is what makes the argument ring true, rather than a forced TV debate. I have to say the episode shows that it is possible to call a person out without having to scream or be confrontational. Christine's trenchant but measured delivery is a masterclass in assertiveness. And when paired with the inner revelation of Mykelti, it's a layered, emotionally compelling moment that will just not be quiet about. Okay, sister friends, let's shine some light on the mouthfuls of Robyn, and trust me, this is where things get tricky and non-drama. She did not explode or yell, that's not Robyn, but you could sense every last bit of inner math occurring on her face. She is somehow measuring every phrase Christine speaks, trying to find a way to respond without appearing defensive, yet without yielding too much. Robyn started with small signals of acknowledgement. A nod here, a soft "I see what you mean" there. At first glance, it may look like there is minimal engagement, but in reality it's standard reality TV microdrama. And those little movements tell the audience so much. She's listening but also plotting and thinking. And sister friends, that's what keeps people watching. The tension's not always boisterous, sometimes it's in the silence, the glances and the carefully chosen words. Even when at one time Robyn tried to break down some events, she offered context for past decisions, explaining her intentions were for the good of the family. Christine, however, wasn't interested in debating intentions, she was focused on impact. And that's a key point, intentions don't erase effects. Christine calmly pointed out how Robyn's decisions had made others feel sidelined or unheard. Meanwhile, Mykelti's revelation continued to linger in the background. After explaining to us about her girlfriend during adolescence, you might see some of the siblings' attention quietly drift. There were rapid flashes of the eyes, raised brows, and even the occasional smirk. These reactions were not flashy but created an undertone of tension, pointing out how disclosures could ripple through family life. Christine also used a smart tactic in this segment. She came full circle back to points made previously, repeating her message. As an example, she brought up one of her vacation trips, where she felt left out, and then connected it with another recent incident from last season. Repeating these examples gracefully, she made it very clear that this was not a singular occurrence, and it left Robyn without any easy escape. Now, the really interesting aspect of this confrontation is that Robyn's defense was indirect, rather than direct. She used calming explanations, warm smiles and silences to regain control of the dialogue without destroying the rhythm. You could feel she was picking her words with care, balancing acknowledgement and defense. This is classic reality TV suspense. The tension is subversive, but it's palpable. Meanwhile, Mykelti didn't stay quiet after her secret life was revealed. She added for good measure remarks about how family pressure had shaped her. She said she felt at times that she had to keep parts of herself hidden to prevent judgment or conflict. This introduced more depth to the scene in that the drama was not just Christine and Robyn. It was the compounded effects of family life over a few years. At this point, the audience was actually able to see the different layers of dynamic. Christine calling out patterns,
Robyn defending quietly and processing, and Mykelti speaking her own truth. The interweaving of these strands generated a scene that's compelling and emotionally rich. Sister friends, let's learn an important yet subtle lesson. The control and pacing here bring the power in this scene. Christine holds control by remaining calm and exact. Robyn exercises control by remaining composed and choosing when to respond. Mykelti brings authenticity by telling a story that's both personal and revealing. Together it's a lesson in multi-layered reality TV narrative. All brief aside about audience manipulation, viewers online already reacted to the subtle clues, the pauses, the looks, the little digs and the personal confessions. Undefined, that's why this episode trended in fan circles, even before the dramatic confessions and showdowns that come later. Alright sister friends, now we're getting to the juiciest part of the drama. Christine's sharpest lines and passive-aggressive digs at Robyn. This is the part where you can really see why season 20 is so top-notch in the franchise. Christine did not generically call Robyn out. She listed specific behaviors, patterns, and choices that had affected her personally, and she did it with specificity. One of the most dramatic moments was when Christine said something along the lines of, "It's not what you do, Robyn, it's how you make everyone feel while doing it." Boom. Sister friends, it is quiet, it is cutting, and it gets to the absolute heart of the matter without yelling or drama. She went on to mention particular instances in which she had felt overlooked or ignored, and connect them to broader family dynamics. She gave for example holidays when her opinion was not asked, decisions made for the family that did not consider her, and occasions when she felt her feelings were minimized. And the way she repeated certain phrases just enough to emphasize them made each point hit hard. That's classic storytelling, keeping viewers engaged while building tension. Meanwhile, Mykelti's revelation about her teenage girlfriend kept surfacing subtly. She explained that navigating her personal identity in a family with strict expectations shaped her resilience and self-awareness. This made her story complement Christine's confrontation rather than distract from it. Effectively, Christine was pointing to family patterns and Mykelti was illustrating the personal consequences of those patterns. Now here is where it gets even more subtle. Christine used light humor strategically. She made, for instance, jokes about family quirks or Robyn's particular habits. These weren't random, they diffused tension somewhat while still keeping everyone focused on her point. The fans love this equilibrium because it makes the showdown enjoyable to follow and yet realistic. Robyn, on the other hand, continued to react understatedly. Her nods, hesitations, and muted interjections here and there gave the audience an insight into her inner process. She was not defensive in the style of most reality TV. She was guarded, almost strategic. Sister friends, that is where the drama resides. Understated, subtle, yet deeply meaningful. One of Christine's subtle digs that are already being debated by fans on the internet was about decision-making tendencies. She said, "It's always for the family, but whose family?" This challenges Robyn's leadership in a calm, intellectual way, and shows Christine's frustration without turning the conversation into a shouting match. That's the power of intentional language. It strikes, it adheres, and it makes people lean in. Another smart tactic Christine used was returning to previous examples to make her points stick. She reminded Robyn of past incidents, not to embarrass her but to demonstrate a recurring pattern. By doing so calmly, she emphasized the impact of what she was saying and allowed the audience to see the bigger picture. Meanwhile, Mykelti inserted short reflections here and there, threading her own life throughout the story. She indicated how certain family expectations had affected her own choices, quietly showing the ripple effect of Robyn's decisions over the years. These small but significant contributions amplified the emotional depth of the scene. Sister friends, the brilliance of this episode lies in the multi-layered interaction. Christine's targeted criticism, Robyn's measured responses, and Mykelti's personal revelations all interweaving to create tension, insight, and drama. It's not just about the words, it's about how the words are delivered, how they're received, and how they echo through the room. A key takeaway from Part 6. Christine's sharpest lines combined with Mykelti's subtle but powerful personal story keep viewers captivated. It's proof that reality TV doesn't always need yelling or chaos. Sometimes calm, precise confrontation and personal revelation are far more compelling. Alright, sister friends, now we're diving into the family dynamics and reactions from other siblings. This is where the scene becomes layered and even more fascinating. You can spot these during the time Christine is confronting Robyn and Mykelti is sharing her secret. The other siblings are reacting, processing, and at times shifting the energy in the room without even uttering a word. Let's first talk about subtle expressions. One brother can raise an eyebrow at something Christine has said, another can squirm in his seat, another can glance over at Mykelti as if to silently register the revelation about her teen girlfriend. These small, almost imperceptible movements speak volumes. Reality TV fans tune them out, but it's these micro-reactions that provide a confrontation with a sense of reality and relevance. Now some of the siblings moved in closer as Christine spoke about specific incidents in detail. You could see they were absorbing her points, recognizing patterns they may have witnessed, but never discussed out loud. It's a powerful moment because it shows how Christine's calm but precise delivery can change the room's energy without raising her voice. Meanwhile, Mykelti's secret continues to ripple subtly through the group. A couple of siblings exchanged quiet whispers or quick glances, as if acknowledging a side of Mykelti they never fully knew. It's not dramatic in the way TV editing sometimes exaggerates, but the tension is palpable. These small reactions give the audience a sense that the family is processing not only Christine's confrontation but also Mykelti's personal revelation. At one point a sibling lightly joked about a minor family quirk. Christine responded with a subtle smirk, not to derail the conversation but to reinforce her calm authority. That's part of the reason why her approach works so well. She's straightforward, demanding, and uncompromising, but she also knows when to slip in a bit of humor to keep things from getting too tense. Meanwhile, Robyn's expressions continued to shift. Her nods were slightly slower, her smile slightly more restrained, and her glances in the siblings' direction were a mixture of acknowledgement and calculation. She's listening carefully, but you can tell she's considering Christine's points as well as calculating how the family will respond. That kind of quiet response is classic Robyn, calm, controlled, but highly attuned. Sister friends, this is where the cadence of the conversation matters as well. Christine isn't rushing, she allows each statement to drop fully, leaving space for responses and subtle interactions to arrive. This slowness is what makes the scene feel so real. You can almost hear the unspoken thinking, the siblings' internal processing, Robyn's reflection, and even Mykelti's silent reaffirmation of her own story. The other significant thing here is how the camera captures eye contact and hesitation. A glance between Mykelti and a sibling, or the manner in which Robyn holds eye contact for a half second too long, adds tensions in layers. It's low-key, but it's what makes the scene work because audiences feel like they're witnessing real, unbridled emotion. Now, one moment that really stood out, when Christine returned to a certain sensitive family incident, one of the siblings softly sighed, just barely noticeably. You could feel that moment lent validity to Christine's point without having to say it. These little nonverbal reactions are why fans often rewind and watch these segments multiple times. They're full of hidden cues and layered storytelling. The combination of Christine's precision, Mykelti's revelation, Robyn's subtle processing, and the siblings' reactions makes this episode feel deeply authentic and compelling. It's a masterclass in multi-layered reality TV, showing that drama doesn't always have to be loud. It can thrive in the small gestures, subtle reactions, and precise words. Alright, sister friends, now we're turning our focus fully to Mykelti's personal story, the one she revealed about having a girlfriend during her teenage years, and how it shook the family dynamic in season. This is one of those moments where reality TV becomes more than just entertainment. It becomes raw, emotional, and revealing. As the cameras rolled, Mykelti explained that growing up in the family often meant adhering to expectations and unspoken rules.
She discussed how she sometimes felt pressured to conform and how holding back parts of herself, like her love life, was a means of expectation management. Then came the bombshell revelation: she dated a girlfriend in high school. Now, sister friends, this was no offhand remark or fleeting comment. Mykelti took a deep breath, looked around the room, and told her story in its entirety, including how it impacted her relationships with other family members and her own self-esteem. Her voice was low but focused, and it shifted the energy in the room immediately. You could feel the siblings leaning in, Robyn's discreet raise of the eyebrows, and Christine's encouraging, knowing glance. What is so fascinating about this is how Mykelti framed the story. She did not frame it as being rebellious or wild. She talked about self-discovery, personal growth, and the challenges of being able to be herself in a family where tradition was occasionally placed above individuality. By doing this, she earned the audience's empathy while also subtly highlighting family dynamics that may have stifled personal expression. During this revelation, there were a few key reactions from the siblings that are worth noting. One sibling lightly shifted in their seat, almost as if processing a new layer of Mykelti's personality they had never considered. Another gave a soft, supportive nod, acknowledging her honesty without interrupting. These small moments are reality television gold. They say so much without saying a word. Meanwhile, Robyn's reaction was muted but revealing. There was silence, a soft gasp, and then cautious eye contact. You could see her processing the admission and wrestling with what it was doing to the family narrative. Once more, it wasn't an over-the-top drama, but the understatement of the moment rendered it all the more powerful. Christine was also instrumental here. As Robyn hashed it out, Christine offered gentle verbal confirmation, highlighting understanding and approval. She was careful to note the bravery that it took for Mykelti to be forthcoming, reaffirming the idea that personal truths matter, even when they challenge long-standing family norms. Another layer of intrigue comes from the timing of this revelation. Mykelti didn't arbitrarily drop the narrative. She timed its disclosure when Christine was talking to Robyn, and it brought texture and drama. The juxtaposition of a family confrontation and an intimate confession made for a multi-layered scene that kept viewers on the edge of their seats, interpreting every facial expression, pause, and subtle gesture. Sister friends, what's interesting here is how this disclosure intersects with the overall family dynamics. Mykelti's experience highlights the limitations imposed by family expectations, the complexity of sibling relationships, and the ways personal identity is navigated in a tight-knit traditional household. It's compelling storytelling because it's both personal and universally relatable, even for viewers outside the sister wives world. The pacing is key. Mykelti didn't rush through her story, she let it breathe, giving space for the family's reactions and for viewers to process the emotional weight. By doing this, the episode balances confrontation, revelation, and introspection in a way that keeps the audience captivated for the full hour. Alright sister friends, now we're diving into the siblings' reactions to Mykelti's revelation, and this part is where the tension in the room becomes almost palpable. These are the moments one hopes for on reality TV. The subtle, gentle answers say just as much as a tantrum. One kid shifted only his hips and opened his eyes only so, making one aware that he was stunned. A sister sighed to herself softly. These subtle reactions are nothing but say everything within a family. You could see them silently processing, weighing the implications of Mykelti's confession about having a girlfriend in high school, and how it reflected on family expectations and past assumptions. Christine, as always, maintained her calm authority. She didn't overreact or dominate the conversation. Instead, she used verbal nods and supportive interjections to highlight Mykelti's courage. She might have said something like, "Thank you for being honest. I know that wasn't easy," which both validated Mykelti and also subtly encouraged the other siblings to receive her story without judgment. Meanwhile, Robyn's reaction was subtle. Her body position slowly shifted, her eyes tracked each sibling's face, and she took strategic pauses before speaking. You could see her process the revelation intellectually and emotionally at the same time. She did not interrupt, but tiny gestures, a raised eyebrow or a slow nod, said volumes of recognition and internal evaluation. A turning point was reached when one of the siblings met another's gaze for a brief moment, as if to say wordlessly, "We did not know this about her." These moments were brief and all but invisible, but they added layers of depth to the scene. It's the kind of storytelling where the audience catches the nuance, even if the cameras don't linger for long. Now, Christine did something very strategic here. She looped Mykelti's revelation back to the larger family dynamic, without making it confrontational. She highlighted how personal truths and family expectations sometimes clash, creating unspoken tension and misunderstanding. This subtle commentary elevated the scene from mere confession to a broader reflection on family life, making it more compelling for viewers. Another detail, Mykelti's calm and confident delivery made the other siblings' reactions more meaningful. Because she wasn't defensive or dramatic, the room had to acknowledge her story without embellishment. That's a subtle power move. Her honesty and composure commanded respect and attention, which in turn amplified the drama without creating chaos. Sister friends, this part of the episode is all about subtext. The unspoken acknowledgement of Mykelti's bravery, the quiet processing of information, and the subtle gestures of recognition all create tension that feels authentic and compelling. It's not loud or exaggerated, but it's emotionally gripping, and that's why viewers are hooked. The pacing again plays a crucial role. By letting each reaction breathe, pauses, glances, soft nods, the show builds suspense and engagement naturally. The audience isn't just watching words being spoken, they're watching human emotion unfold in real time. Alright, sister friends, now it's time to focus on Robyn's response to both Christine's confrontation and Mykelti's personal revelation. This is one of those few moments when the audience gets to see vulnerability and introspection from Robyn, something that's been simmering quietly all season. Her demeanor shifted long before she spoke. Robyn wasn't getting angry or defensive. Her body language shifted subtly instead, a slow breath in, subtle head tilts, and some thoughtful pauses. These may seem like inconsequential instances, but in reality they express self-reflection. You can almost feel her processing the criticisms, reflecting on the family history, and grappling with the emotional weight of Mykelti's revelation. At one point she quietly acknowledged a few of Christine's points, saying something along the lines of, "I understand what you're saying and I'll take it into consideration." Sister friends, that line might sound simple, but in context it's powerful. It means she's willing to listen to her out without coming unraveled, which in the high-drama world of sister wives, is both rare and fascinating. Meanwhile, her glances in Mykelti's direction were also telling. Robyn's face reflected a mix of acknowledgement, shock and careful consideration. She wasn't judgmental, but you could see that she was recalculating past assumptions, trying to reconcile what she thought she knew with the new information. That quiet internal processing is exactly what makes this moment so multi-layered. Christine, on the other hand, carried on with her steady, calm approach. She did not cut Robyn off or push the conversation forcibly. Instead, she allowed Robyn to respond in her own way. This creates a strained but engaging rhythm that holds audiences at the edge of their seat. A very perceptive moment was when Robyn pondered family expectations. She discussed, without explaining too much, how difficult it is to balance different personalities, traditions, and personal goals within the family. Her tone was measured but sincere, and it gave the audience a window into the challenges of her role in the household. Meanwhile, Mykelti's presence and previous revelation added an underlying tension. Robyn's pauses and subtle gestures weren't just about Christine, they were also a reaction to Mykelti's story. You may have caught her silently nodding in acknowledgement of the courage it took Mykelti to be so vulnerable, which also humanized Robyn and made the scene all the more poignant. Sister friends, that's what makes this part of the episode so compelling. It's subtle drama at its finest. No screaming, no over-the-top fighting, at most carefully selected words, understated body language, and a nuanced dynamic between confrontation, confession, and introspection. It is that kind of reality television rewarded by close viewing, as each glance, hesitation, and intonation matters, and the most subtle yet crucial detail, the audience investment for this scene, is heightened due to the pace. Giving Robyn's thoughts space and by putting Christine's points where she does, gives the show suspense and emotional resonance. Alright, sister friends, now we are dipping into the increasing tension among the siblings and how Mykelti's secret continues to affect a family. This is where the subtle micro-drama gets rich and really fascinating and has people tuned in to watch what unravels. Next thing you know, you catch siblings exchanging fleeting, meaningful glances. There's a subtle, almost silent dialogue happening in these looks, acknowledgement of Mykelti's story, surprise at what they're hearing, and sometimes quiet judgment or curiosity. These micro-reactions may seem minor, but they're actually packed with emotional complexity. Reality TV fans watch these and they provoke interaction since observers like to translate body language and nuance. A few siblings shifted positions, altering their posture or leaning forward ever so slightly, showing interest and engagement. Others wore more subdued expressions, but their eyes followed the conversation eagerly. Sister friends, this is the kind of nuance that separates ordinary reality drama from highly engaging storytelling. The tension doesn't always have to be loud, sometimes it lives in these small, almost invisible gestures,
Christine continued to guide the conversation with careful precision. She highlighted how past incidents and family patterns have shaped each sibling's behavior and experiences, connecting her points subtly back to Mykelti's revelation. By doing so, Christine was not merely venting grievances, she was building a narrative that placed the individual narratives within larger family contexts. In contrast, Robyn's muted behaviors, small nods, reflective pauses and cautious eye contact still conveyed processing and reflection. You could almost see the wheels turning as she weighed what was being said, how it aligned with her perspective, and how to maintain composure without escalating conflict. A particularly telling moment occurred when a sibling whispered quietly to another, likely reacting to Mykelti's confession. These brief, almost imperceptible exchanges added layers of tension. Even though the conversation was calm on the facade, these minor riptides informed much inner working through allegiance and silent judgments coalescing in the moment. Another notable aspect of this portion of the series is the way that Christine used looping and callbacks to make her point. She would reference past incidents, then tie them to Mykelti's revelation or sibling reactions, creating a web of interconnected moments that made the drama richer and more multidimensional. Sister friends, it's also fascinating to note how Mykelti's calm and confident delivery influenced the because she wasn't defensive or dramatic, the family couldn't dismiss her story. Her integrity earned respect, operating quietly to realign power and highlighting the tension between her own tranquility and the tension in the room. The pacing still mattered. The show gives each subtle reaction space to breathe, giving viewers time to absorb the tension, pick up on the nonverbal cues and try to guess what happens next. This careful timing is what keeps the episode compelling for the full hour. It's tension built on quiet, layered storytelling, not constant yelling or chaos. Alright, sister friends, now we're at the turning point of the episode, the moment where Christine's confrontation, Robyn's subtle responses, and Mykelti's revelation all converge into a highly charged emotional scene. This is the part that will be replayed over and over by viewers and discussed for weeks on the internet. Christine had by now introduced her findings, pointed out trends, and had criticisms delivered calmly. She had not screamed, but her words were heavily weighted and authoritative. She made a line that really landed, something like, "It's not about blame, it's about seeing how our actions ripple through the family." Sister friends, that sort of statement cuts through defensiveness while still holding the moral high ground. Robyn's reaction here was new. She leaned ever so minutely in her seat, her hands clasped in her lap, and there was a soft, thoughtful nod. She was like accepting Christine's arguments here, but not compromising it out there. These nonverbal cues matter because they convey emotion through pantomime, which reality TV audiences catch and delight in decoding. And in the meantime here, Mykelti once again stayed steady. Her casual manner of fending off her past, a high school girlfriend, serves as an amazing foil to the tension that it creates. By speaking confidently and without defensiveness, she reminded everyone in the room and the audience that honesty and authenticity are stronger than evasion or defensiveness. The siblings' reactions at this turning point were equally compelling. Some leaned forward, nodding slowly, acknowledging both Christine's and Mykelti's points. Others exchanged quick, meaningful glances, showing silent recognition of truths that had never been discussed openly. Even Robyn's fleeting, almost non-detectable micro-expressions, a small raise of the brows or a tightly guarded bite on the lip, were packed with subtext and strain. Christine then effectively circled back to past events, connecting earlier family history to current relationships. She wasn't attacking or exploding, she was simply naming patterns, reaffirming her assertion that these weren't isolated incidents, they were systemically and habitually happening. That is partly why this confrontation works so well and feels so true and emotionally rich. Sister friends, one of the most impressive things about this scene is how silence plays out in editing. There are short pauses between remarks, subtle reactions shown in close-up, and pauses where the camera holds on. These pauses create anticipation and intensity, allowing the audience to feel the emotional weight without any loud arguments. Then comes the emotional resonance, Christine's calm authority, Robyn's reflective gestures, and Mykelti's honest revelation all intersect. It's not about dramatic yelling. It's about the authenticity and honesty that permeates the room. You feel the shift, the tension dissipates into reflection, and viewers become deeply immersed in the interplay of the family. Still, this is where the episode teaches one of its most important lessons. Confrontation, when handled well, done patiently, and in sincerity, can be effective without being catastrophic. Christine shows leadership. Robyn shows introspection, and Mykelti shows courage. Together they create a scene that is both emotionally charged and deeply satisfying for fans. Alright, sister friends, now we're entering the aftermath of the emotional turning point. This is where the family begins to process everything that has just been revealed. Christine's pointed confrontation, Robyn's subtle responses, and Mykelti's personal confession. These are normally as interesting as the fight itself because they show the ripple effect of tension and truthfulness. Among the first things that will hit you are the subtle changes in body language. Brothers move position, stare at each other in silence, and at times rock back on their heels as if pondering inwardly. These are subtle yet very telling movements, portraying processing, acknowledgement, or even reconsidering old assumptions. Sister friends, it's micro moments like these that make reality television real and emotionally rich. Robyn, for instance, sits in silence chewing over Christine's point. Her face moves from soft nods to brief, almost imperceptible creases of the brow. You can tell she's weighing what was said, shifting her own perspective to the insights presented. She doesn't say anything in this moment, but her considered silence speaks volume. In the meantime, Mykelti's bombshell keeps resonating. A few of the siblings lean in quietly, being empathetic, but others share brief looks that convey shared understanding or shock. Those silent affirmations create tension and drama without any shouting matches, demonstrating that reality television doesn't always require turbulence to draw viewers. Christine, as always, takes advantage of this moment to drive home her points in a gentle manner, pointing out patterns within the family dynamic without ratcheting up the conflict. She makes connections between past decisions, sibling interactions, and Mykelti's story, giving the family a framework to process the events. This approach emphasizes clarity and reflection over confrontation, which is both compelling and educational for viewers. A small but powerful detail, the camera captures lingering looks and pauses. A sibling might glance at Robyn, then down at their hands, silently acknowledging the complexity of the situation. Another might exchange a brief look with Mykelti, signaling empathy. These small, almost invisible moments create layers of drama and engagement that keep the audience hooked. Sister friends, this part also highlights how the family hierarchy and dynamics shift subtly. While Christine maintains calm authority and Robyn reflects, Mykelti's honest revelation gains quiet respect. You can notice that certain siblings are re-evaluating past conclusions or assumptions, revealing the long-term effects of open and honest communication in the family. A main lesson learned from this section of the episode: the aftermath is just as critical as the confrontation. It's here in these introspective moments, gentle gestures, and quiet admissions that the real drama of season 2. The show rewards careful viewing, capturing the emotional and psychological complexity of family dynamics without resorting to shouting or artificial conflict. Alright, sister friends, we've reached the final part of this explosive episode. It is here that Christine and Mykelti make their closing remarks, the family accepts the disclosures, and the subtle resolutions baffle audiences many months after cameras have stopped rolling. Christine, as the calm and resolute voice, takes a moment to summarize her point. She does not rant or demand a nod of affirmation. Instead, she ponders how honesty, transparency, and empathy are essential. She emphasizes that calling out patterns or raising past hurts isn't about blame, about being bitter or angry. It's about growth and consciousness. Sister friends, this degree of purity is what makes her confrontation so effective for the viewers. Meanwhile, Mykelti backs her own story by testifying quietly but resolutely about the things she has been through and how they have shifted her perspective. She speaks of authenticity and self-expression, reminding the family and us that subjective truth matters, no matter how it defies established assumptions. Her introspection is measured, genuine, and down to earth, which appropriately rebalances tension of the previous confrontation. The siblings, though not all verbally engaged, still show subtle nods. A slight nod here, a glance there, a gentle smile. These little gestures show that the conversation has made an impact. Sister friends, it is these little things that give the moment depth, showing that family relationships are shifting if gradually. Robyn's final responses are particularly telling. She does not argue and she does not resentfully justify past decisions. Instead, there are slight positioning changes, gentle head nods, and thoughtful expressions that show inner contemplation. It's a moment of vulnerability that never seems to elude her, and the audience can tell that she's measuring the truths that have been given to her. Christine finishes by upholding family responsibility and affection, assuring everyone that facing challenges doesn't mean withdrawing care, it means honesty and bonding. Mykelti confirms this feeling by showing that personal authenticity and family devotion are compatible, even in their chaotic household. Finally, the episode is concluded with understated yet powerful visual cues, siblings exchanging soft gazes, Mykelti smiling quietly confident, and Christine seeming peaceful yet resolute. The words, gestures, and reflection provide a sense of resolution, but also of recognition that family growth is ongoing. Sister friends, the brilliance of this episode and why Season 20 shines is that it balances confrontation, personal revelation, and subtle resolution. There's tension, yes, but in moderation, there's drama, yes, but nuanced, and there's emotion, yes, but real. Through its subtlety, pacing, and all-human complexity, the episode bakes an enthralling story that will keep viewers buzzing long after the last frame. And there you have it, Season 20 Bombshell. Christine calls out Robyn while Mykelti spills her secret, and an hour of emotion, introspection, and drama all performed to perfection, depth, and authenticity.